So the guardian tells you they take psilocybin a couple times a month. Their dog usually lies beside them on the couch. But lately, during certain sessions, the dog has begun pacing, whining, shifting positions when the music gets louder or when the guardian becomes emotional. There's no ingestion suspected, no access to substances that the dog can get into, and the dog is physically normal. But the owner wonders whether their use could be affecting the dog. So how would you like to approach this?
Would you start with, if you want me to classify it, I would consider it tier one. If because there's no suspected ingestion at this point, but the change in the behavior, the dog is probably sensing what's going on with the owner when they're taking the psilocybin. So would you approach it with do we need to consider getting your dog not being with you when you're doing the psilocybin? What are the other options we can do with the dog? Take them out of the scenario so they're not having to experience it because they're on that roller coaster of emotion with the owners.
Yeah,
First step I would take.
okay. I like that. I will, Dr. Kassar, will pass to you as well.
Uh, I feel like I would like to, after Tammy's first step, gently inquire with the pet parent how their experiences are going. Is it getting worse for them? So is that why the dog is escalating? So maybe suggesting a facilitator or a different setting for the owner to explore psilocybin while we figure out what's going on with the animal.
Any other questions or, yeah, Tanya.
Well, I'm just thinking about talking them because it says in tier one, consider CBD support. So obviously getting the dog out of that situation, but in my experience with some owners, they're so, this is how it has to be. And so maybe discussing with them anxiety and how maybe CBD can support the dog during this experience. Obviously it's a whole world of information to give them, but providing all the different scenarios and giving them options
Mhm.
that they can select from.
Ooh, I like that. Bringing in, speaking my spectrum of care language in terms of presenting multiple different perceptions, especially in this case, if you don't think it's maybe some cases we'll talk about in the future that maybe are more kind of vivid abuse or intentional, that this is someone who's, coming to you honestly and getting your opinion. So I think that this is a really good approach. Um, what about while you have this owner here, other kind of harm reduction principles you would like to review with them or discuss with them, as we know their pet is maybe around psilocybin?
Yeah.
Tanya.
Well, I mean that's a really good point, is talking to them and ensuring that their safety practices with having it around are so that the dog doesn't accidentally ingest it. So giving them some solutions or some groundwork to be able to ensure that their dog does not, because I mean, I don't know enough about this space, but I can imagine if it's like you don't know what you're doing and you happen to leave something out, it's very possible the dog could get into it and you wouldn't know. So being able to provide a checklist, maybe saying, okay, if you're going to do this, here's a checklist for you.
Great. And I believe Dr. Kassar shared one in the chat. And so good that we have some resources like that that you can share with pet owners who may approach you like this. And this is kind of some of my thoughts, right? I think I would say, yeah, thanks for discussing this with me. Thanks for bringing this to my attention. And I'd validate their concerns without saying that's exactly what's going on. I'd say, hey, that it's possible, even though your animal's not ingesting this, your energetic shifts, your emotional shifts, changes in music, changes, if depending how deep you're going in your session, could very much be distressing for your pet. So, um, glad you're aware of that. We also want to make sure maybe there's something else going on, right? We can't say for sure this is just psilocybin related. So we do an exam, depending on what we find, more in-depth kind of behavioral questions. Um, because right, it could be a red herring in these cases. Maybe the dog is okay, and there's something else, and the owner is putting everything just on that. Uh, and so I think finding that balance in cases like these, um, and again, exactly what we said of providing harm reduction, knowing that, okay, it doesn't sound like anything your pet has ingested, but making sure things are locked up, making sure discussing any chocolate content, if there is, and especially in psilocybin, we find quite commonly. And exactly giving some alternatives and saying, well, it doesn't sound like, I mean, in this case, to me, it doesn't sound like you're relying so much on your pet or bringing your pet into ceremony. Your pet just kind of happens to be there. And so, for you to not have to worry about that, are there other options for you? Do you have someone that can sit for your pet while you do these ceremonies kind of once a month? And if that's not possible, I mean, making sure is there another room that they can go into and be comfortable, and still have access to food and water and everything else, so you can focus on your ceremony.
One thing that struck me because I'm reading over the thing there is it says during certain sessions, and I get it as case study, but I wonder if asking them are certain sessions or someone else there? Like who's in the sessions? Because is it the other person that might be there in certain sessions that is creating that stress?
Yeah, important further questions, right? Which ceremonies are the ones that they're causing? Is it one that's just becoming everyone more frequent, or like you said, are there some being more than the other? And in this case, I think the owner says more, well, it's just some ceremonies are harder than others, right? Some are more emotional than others. And I find when I have a bigger reaction that my pet seems distressed as well. Kasar?
My comment is on safety around CBD, and I'd love input from others a little bit on this as well. I think I would be reluctant to use CBD isolate even first in this case, because with any activation of an endocannabinoid receptor, we are inducing some neuroplasticity. So while that can be really useful when guided, does need its own type of guiding. And so I would be concerned that cannabis, just broader term, use adjacent to sessions that we already don't know exactly what's going on, could make that worse. Just like we see in separation anxiety, they pop at the dog, here's a CBD treat, and then they leave, but it's still just as bad as it was before. We can see that anxiety get worse because we're setting up the scenario that it really is as bad as I thought it was. It really is as terrible as I thought it was. And that seems like we might end up with that situation here, unless we're doing work outside of these sessions so that the animal knows how to regulate themselves, is less upset when the owner is dysregulated, or using something that does support the endocannabinoid system without being quite as strongly neuroplastic. So, beta caryophyllene, more from the essential oil side, teaching the owner some massage, or if you are going to use cannabis, a CBD isolate. I think I would be cautious in using any THC, even in a hemp product, because of the state we're putting the animal in without necessarily being able to create a safe environment for them. Did any of my VCCs want to comment on that? What are your thoughts from that perspective? And then we'll go to Amalia.
I agree with you 100% because, like you said, we see that all the time where they're already in a state of anxiety. Owner throws them their CBD chew and walks out the door rather than building the behavior that they want, as opposed to what's going to happen in the future. They're just assuming they're relying on the CBD to make the problem change, and they're only escalating it. So yeah, absolutely.
And I would add to that, we know with anxiety, using THC may not be a good idea because it can increase anxiety. So as you said, a CBD isolate would be a way better choice if that's a choice you're going to make.
That maybe a focus could be prepping for the animal as well. I mean, I love all the suggestions about a sitter or a different room, but if someone's not willing to do that, I don't know how long a trip lasts, but has your dog gone out and or a cat been fed? They're such good timekeepers. So is there agitation because they just need to go out or because they're picking up, like it could be a myriad of things, but it would be great to solve for the really easy ones. Like,
I think those are wonderful points and super practical, right? The is the change in routine that your animals experience. And so, I mean, it can be hard in an exam room to go through all of these type of things, but I think ideally there's preparation for it, not always. And a lot of psilocybin, especially in that middle ground of being very recreational, where people will, at this point, kind of pop it like an edible, and you're keeping that in mind, taking your dog for a longer walk or preparing them, doing things that they love that day to kind of calm the nervous system before that event if there's no other option. And yeah, keeping all of those kind of family dynamics in play is a really great point. All right. How are we feeling with that one? Good. Yeah, I think that's a good starting point.